All right, let's finish up chapter 18, moving on now into some of the terminology we use with digital advertising. A unique visitor is someone with a unique address who is viewing web content for the first time. So a visitor who returns within the same day is not counted twice during a specific time period. So this would be different from when we talk about gross impressions, where someone is counted over and over and over if they continue to see an ad. In this particular case, when you're online and you see an ad, and you may see it multiple times over the course of a day, you're only counted once. Heat maps are used to determine which pages and ads are being viewed and which ones are not. And then, how we collect some of that data on folks that are online is by means of a shopper ID. It's the basic information that a customer provides whenever they are checking out and buying a product. So that's how, your name, your address, your phone number, all that stuff, that gets collected, and that is your shopper ID. A click is when a visitor interacts with an ad. And that means you're actually clicking on it so that the visitor is going to head towards an advertiser's destination. It's going to take you from the page you are on and put you somewhere else. That constitutes a click. A page view is an internet or mobile user visiting a web page on a given digital property. When you land on an actual web page, that is counted as a page view. When a customer actually purchases a product or a service, that is known as a conversion, or also sometimes called an acquisition. This is an event showing that a user has become a customer of the advertiser. You've responded to the call of action. You've made a purchase. You've signed up for more information. You've done whatever it is that the company wants you to do. When an advertiser pays based on the number of conversions, this is referred to as a Cpa model, or cost per acquisition. So this is where an advertiser would generally answer the question, how much does it cost for me to actually get someone to respond to my call to action? We're not dealing with just impressions, not dealing with just interaction with an ad, actively paying attention to an ad. We're talking about true response here. That's what CPA measures. There's various attribution models in which an advertiser only pays for certain interactions with their ads. And if you want to see details on that, you can take a look at those in your textbook. It's important that advertisers understand the yield of an ad. When we talk about yield, we're talking about the percentage of clicks versus impressions on an ad within a specific page. So a certain ad on a certain page may have made 100 impressions, but it only generated 10 clicks. So 10% would be the yield rate on that particular ad. Lookalike targeting, I should say, is when a target audience is built using the attributes of a specific customer profile in order to find other users with the same interests. So it's the idea of trying to build some demographic or psychographic information on those that have responded, and use that information to say, okay, this is a type of customer that's interested in what it is we're doing, so we're going to try to appeal to more people like that in the future. Frequency capping is a way to limit the showing of an ad over time so that you don't overexpose content to a user. This is a way to say that, perhaps a company only wants to show a certain ad to a certain person X number of times, and then once that person has hit that quota, then they no longer see that ad. That's an attempt to not oversaturate the user, and not actually turn them off to that particular product or service, or perhaps they determine that inaction means not interested, so they're not going to waste their time putting an impression on you. They're going to look for somebody else that may be interested in what they have to offer. As ads and other elements are serviced, information is gathered about users. The various pieces of gathered information are called attributes. So all that data that's being collected, in this case, not necessarily on those that are making purchases, but basically just getting the basic information of everyone that is being exposed. An identity graph is a database that houses all the known identifiers that correlate with individual customers, and these are used to understand which ads to target to individual users. So it's basically a way of visualizing all the data that is coming in and then using that visualization to try to make some assessments. Now, here's some of the different terms that we use in terms of tracking audiences online. There's bounce rate. That's the percentage of people who visit a website but leave without visiting any other page. In traditional media, we've called this churn, when people are exposed to something but then they move away from it. Bounce rate is kind of the same idea online. Clickstream is a recorded path that the pages the user requested in going through one or more websites. So basically following the trail of where they've gone. Cookies are small text files on the user's PC that identifies the user's browser so that they are recognized when they revisit the site. It's part of your data information, if you will. And then analytics or web metrics collect the data about a website and its visitors. In terms of who provides this information, who tracks it, who puts it all together, there's two main companies at this point that are doing it in terms of aggregating and making it widely available. This is outside of the various companies and platforms that keep track of things on their own. There's Nielsen Net Ratings, and then there's ComScore. Both of these companies use a panel of respondents who agree to allow the research companies to put tracking software on their computer or smartphone. So in other classes, you may have heard of things like the diary or the personal people meter when it comes to measuring audience involvement with radio or television. Here, Nielsen and ComScore are using software that's within someone's device to be able to track what they're looking at online and what they respond to. An internet rating can be calculated from three different bases or three different universes, if you will. First off, there's the total U.S. population. Makes sense. That's everyone, all of us here in these United States. The internet universe is those people that have access to an internet accessible computer or device. And this is whether or not they actually go online. So this would be those that have access to online content. And then the active universe would be those that not only have access to the content, but actually use the internet, use their computer, use their smartphone. And you can see that the percentages of people compared to the actual U.S. population is going to go down and down. And that may be valuable information for those that are trying to reach certain people as to how effective the internet's going to be in and of itself. And then with that, also thinking about what in particular about those users online are those people going to be looking for? What are they going to be attracted to? What can you entice them with? Now, it seems as though the online world is the way to go when it comes to advertising because it can be so easily tracked and more people are getting online and you consuming their entertainment that way. There are still some things, though, that are a bit of a challenge in terms of internet advertising. First, an advertiser with a 10% share of a market should be spending at least 10% of their media dollars in a particular industry. This answers the question, how much advertising is enough? How much of my budget should I spend? Whatever amount that you have in terms of share compared to your competition, you probably want to look at spending that same percentage in advertising dollars. Also keeping in mind that an ad needs to be seen by somebody at least 3 times in order for it to be effective. We're talking about frequency here. So you want someone to be exposed to something at least 3 times. And if it's something that's brand new or your company's brand new, you're going to want to increase that significantly, perhaps at least even double that number. Now, the other question, the second question that we ask, which medium is more effective? Different media have different strengths. Effectiveness is heavily dependent on the creative quality of the ad. Now, this also is going to be part of answering the question, not just who your audience is, but how do they expect to receive content? What particular platforms are they using? Even if you're putting all of your eggs into online media, it's still going to manifest differently if you're using different social media tactics versus different websites and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that you consider the particular strength of the media and also consider its weaknesses. But know what that particular media is good at doing and how you can use that to meet your marketing objectives. There may be one media that's better at that than others, depending on the brand or the organization or the industry that you're dealing with that's doing the advertising. So consider that and consider the audience, consider what they're looking for on the platform that you're thinking about using, and make your assessment from there. Third question, which medium provides the best environment? This question assumes that there's a rub-off effect between the medium and the advertising message. Now, there's debate on this that hasn't necessarily been confirmed, but there are some cases where you can definitely make a strong argument for this. The main thing here is to ensure that advertisers running multiple insertions are given a fair rotation, to not necessarily favor one company or another, assuming that all things are the same. They're doing the same advertising buy, they're looking for the same audience, what have you. It's best to be able to give someone as fair of a shake as you possibly can, given the circumstances that they've asked for and the circumstances that you as a media outlet are in. Question 4, which is better, flighting or continuity? Now, you may remember from previous chapters, flighting is the idea of breaking up advertising buys where you may have a couple weeks on and a couple weeks off, or maybe 1 month on, 1 month off, or you're only buying during certain times of the year because that's a company's busy season that they're looking for customers, where continuity is pretty much having a regular advertising schedule throughout all points of the year. For products that are sold more or less evenly throughout the year, advertisers are guided by the recency theory of advertising. This is based on research that shows a single exposure close to purchase is going to be the most effective. In other words, the last thing they hear is the thing they're going to remember, and it's going to have the most impact on them. There is a need for synergy between the advertising and seasonal consumer or trade promotions. Most advertisers appreciate the importance of continuity, but given this minimum, they find continuity scheduling to be an ideal that's beyond the brand's budget. In other words, they simply can't afford to run ads all year long. So again, it kind of goes back to that question of budget. What are they able to realistically do? And maximizing the advertising dollars that they have to be able to make the most possible impact. So a lot of companies will, if budget is the only thing that's keeping them from running year round, may do a schedule where they do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or perhaps only run on certain days of the week, things like that, in order to make the appearance of having some sort of continuity, even if they actually don't. So there's a lot of different strategies out there, and considering the budget, considering the message, there's going to be different answers to that question based on the particular situation. And then this question, when is my commercial worn out? When do people get tired of hearing your message? An industry rule of thumb is that a commercial is worn out when the heaviest viewers are exposed to it 26 times. So when it gets to the point that that the advertisement has kind of lost its luster, lost its magic. People get agitated by it more than kind of paying attention to it. It may be time to switch things out. Now, does that rule apply to a single execution or to an entire campaign of similar but different creative executions? Over what period of time do we consider this? What about hiatus periods? Can something that is in danger of getting old be taken off and maybe put back on at a later point? Again, those are going to be case-by-case basis sort of things that you need to decide. Sometimes there's a bit of nostalgia that comes back when an old advertisement comes on. We tend not to think of it that way, but there are times that we see an old ad and yeah, we remember it and it creates a positive sort of reaction to us. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to wear things out. You know, kind of like McDonald's with the McRib. It only comes out at certain times of the year and it's created a cult following with people that love it as a result. You can kind of picture a similar sort of thing with advertising, even though people may not clamor and rush to go see your ad, but it definitely helps it to have a certain amount of staying power. And again, the ways and measurements that you do that's going to be different from situation to situation. And that's chapter 18. We can talk about some of these terms and talk about some of the ways that we can use these to advantages in various industries with various media. Bring your thoughts, bring your opinions, bring your ideas. We'll talk about them all in class.